What is going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the six-man show. It is July 13th, 2020. You're back with Jonathan. I'm here with my co-host, Luke Sylvia. Usually I ask Luke how he's doing, but I know he's not doing all that well last night after the UFC fights. You want to walk us through that, Luke?
Oh boy, man, UFC fights. First of all, to anyone that hasn't given UFC a chance during this quarantine, what are you doing? Because I gave UFC a chance and it's incredible. First of all, it's awesome. I mean, maybe it's just like, I don't know. Maybe it's the caveman in me that just loves just like blood sports.
Carnage.
I'm not really sure. Just like dudes and women also like just going at it and I don't know.
Pause.
It's a pause, but all that to say, it's a pretty incredible sport, and it's more incredible when you get into knowing like what positions are good.
What are we doing here? What are we? We're not even 2 minutes into this thing. Come on, clean it up.
It's all that to say, there's strategy to the game. And I think the more that you watch the sport, the better you get a handle on that, and it just makes it much more exciting to know, this person's in a really bad spot. Let's see how they can get out of it, that type of thing. I knew little to nothing about MMA prior to quarantine. Now I have watched every single event. I think there's been like 6 or 7. There's another one this Wednesday. But the reason you said that I wasn't doing well is because Max Holloway
got the Aaron Gordon treatment.
Yeah, he got the Aaron Gordon treatment. I saw that you tweeted out a pretty funny thing last night about the handshake, the similarity, Aaron Gordon, Max Holloway getting robbed.
Facts.
So it was just terrible. That is the one thing, Jonathan, that I do not like about the UFC in the short time I've watched it, is fighters always say, don't let it go to the judges.
Yep.
Right. And I understood it, but not to the extent that I understand it now, because after last night, judges scoring it essentially 3. So it was split decision, one judge in favor of Holloway, other one in favor of Volkanovski.
It was the 2 judges that were in favor of.
Well, yeah. And then I was going to say, then it came down to that final decision of the final judge, who also scored it like it was 3-2 in rounds 1. And it was like Holloway definitely won rounds 1 and 2. Volkanovski, you could give him 4 and 5. And then 3 was different. Like it was definitely some blurriness there. But at the same time, most people were agreeing over social media between fighters, fans, everything, regardless of affiliation, Holloway took round 3 and did well enough to win the fight. So that was kind of what irritated me last night, maybe left a sour taste in my mouth, because it just didn't make sense. So I would love to see.
There's some monetary involvement. We can
there was a little. We can divulge that, I guess, and so that my hurt came from that as well.
Yeah, it's understandable. We've all been there.
Yeah, but it hurt even more seeing that everyone was saying, besides those judges, that Holloway won. So I love to see UFC try to figure out. I don't know how you do it, but just not have. They've got to be biased in some way. Like, they're not perfect. And you've seen like refs in basketball have their issues, and when it comes to swinging a game, doing things like that, I don't think it's super common anymore. But in UFC, I feel like it's pretty easy to kind of fudge the numbers. So all that to say, Jonathan, it was a great night of fights. There was some pretty awesome fights, except for the Usman fight. That was pretty trash. I just don't think Usman's style is fun. It's not entertaining. It's not gonna pull ratings that like a Masvidal and like Conor McGregor fight would pull. And that's just because of the type of fight. If that's the way Usman wants to defend his belt, for those of you guys who didn't see, just end the clinch the entire time. Masvidal tried.
Masvidal's toes.
Yeah, which, by the way, doesn't feel
wincing.
great.
That. It's terrible.
So Yeah, but fun night there. There's fights again in Abu Dhabi this Wednesday on Fight Island. So it's good to have live
Such a good
sports.
name.
Yeah, a great name, wonderful name.
I take it
But
you haven't watched too much boxing in your day.
no, aside from
Boxing is
like what
largely,
everybody.
yeah, it's largely the same. Like you've watched like the Mayweather fights and stuff like that, but I feel like refs and screwing up decisions is just really a issue with combat sports in general.
Yeah.
To the point where people say that it's rigged and all things like
It's
that. But
it's hard not to think that
no,
sometimes
I definitely get it.
solely because of that. Like nobody, like I said, nobody's perfect, and everybody's got to lean one way or the other. Those judges like one of those fighters one way or the other, even though they say they're not biased. Sometimes they might not be, but like with two bigger guys like that who have already fought before, and Volkanovski being the current champ, I think he got a little bit of leeway there. So
Well,
it is what it is.
you kind of likened the UFC judges to NBA referees. I think honestly, the UFC judges have a much easier job. The NBA referees, they're making hundreds of decisions
Mhm.
every single game, hundreds of judgment calls, where I feel like a pretty casual fan can sit down, watch a fight, and be like, that guy's winning,
Yeah.
that guy's losing. It's fighting. It's kind of carnal. It's kind of almost in all of us in a sense to where you just can watch a fight and know that guy's getting the crap kicked out of him, and that guy is having a great time.
Yeah, and
Right?
one of those big categories, we won't spend too much time on this because there's some magic news that I want to talk about. But there's stats that the common person that might not know, that they're categories that the judges are looking at. One of them being octagon control. That's like one of the big categories, and so of how they score. And Max Holloway undoubtedly had octagon control 80% of that fight,
Oh
just
yeah.
constantly pressing forward, wasn't shying away, wasn't letting Volkanovski gain control. It's just, it, like I said, it is what it is.
It
All
just
that.
felt like probably 60% of the match it felt like Max Holloway was winning the fight.
Yeah, and it was a consensus, felt like nationally, worldwide. But anyway, Jonathan, is Markel
Luke
Fultz
hit
gonna
me.
is Markel Fultz gonna join the bubble?
Well, I just wanted everyone to know that you hit me with the the Joe Exotic. I will never financially recover from this meme. It
and
was
and don't
absolutely phenomenal.
and anyone listening, I don't need you thinking I put $100 down
No,
on
no,
this
no, no, no,
fight,
no.
but if it would have won, it would have won me something like that.
Right.
So I wasn't risking that much money, but I was
Listen,
gonna gain that
Luke's
much money.
not in in any kind of trouble with paying his bills or anything like that. Nobody think that. We're just having a little bit of fun.
Right?
All
Yeah,
right.
it
So
makes things exciting.
is Markel Fultz going to enter the bubble? I mean, I don't know. I haven't had the opportunity to sit down and read the whole piece of what was said from Markel or sit down and watch that entire video just yet. Part of me feels like they were asking Luke, not Luke. They're not asking you, Luke, of course. They're asking Clifford, do you know when Markel is going to enter the bubble? And he
It
said,
was weird. This was a weird
question.
quote. The question and the quote don't line up. So I'm wondering, like, can I get a
Exactly.
transcript? Because like you were about to say, his response to if Markel was going to, essentially, this was the question, if he's going to join the bubble, was not definitely, but I think it'll be soon.
Right.
So the latter part of that makes sense, but I think it'll be soon. The not definitely, I don't even know what he's talking about.
This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking he's saying I don't know when he's definitely going to be back, right? Like
Right.
he can't say it's going to be Thursday,
Right.
but he thinks it's going to be soon.
And
For
here's
Markel Fultz
here's
not
the
to join the bubble would be catastrophic to the Magic season, and just I would need to know why. Like you're entitled to your personal space and everything like that, and your privacy, but to just not come back, like I would just like a reason why.
yeah,
But I think he's coming back.
and I think people, including myself initially, read the not definitely part as not definitely coming back. But like you said, Steve Clifford probably was just saying he doesn't know definitely when he will be back.
Right.
So completely different things there. So
I wanted to ask you. I think we both feel pretty confidently that Markel's coming back. So I'm just going to move
yeah,
kind of to this next question here. You've seen guys like Rondo, for like the prime example, complaining on social media about like the quality of the rooms and stuff like that. How do you feel about the NBA players? You know, it seems like it's more far and few between than it is the majority. But how do you feel about these guys like complaining about like the accommodations at the hotels? Because it kind of rubs me the wrong way.
First of all, Rajon Rondo, if you told me, guess a player who's gonna be a spoiled brat about the rooms at Disney, and I had 3 guesses, I promise Rajon Rondo is one of my guesses.
Perfect.
And that's all there is. That is what it is. And that's Rajon Rondo. That is on par.
And they're staying at like the nicest, newest
Right.
Disney resort.
Yeah, and there's some people.
Oh, Motel 6, huh? Like, bro, when was the last time you were in a Motel 6?
Like, that place is bigger than my last apartment.
For real.
So it's absurd. But there were, thankfully, saving face for the NBA players as a whole. There was some former NBA players who were like, it's not bad. Right. It's not a Motel 6. And sorry, Rajon Rondo, it might not be the Four Seasons hotel where you probably stay in every city that you travel to and you have throughout your career. But how about you just focus on winning a ring, bud? Like, let's do that again. You do that again, please.
Speaking of what these players are used to in every NBA city, as we were kind of discussing earlier, there seems to be some rumblings of possibly players inviting Instagram models to the bubble if and when that time comes for their team. And one of these young ladies that we're mentioning said, yeah, this season is not finishing. They're already inviting me to the bubble. I don't think she understands what is going to be waiting for her if she does enter that bubble as far as the quarantine, the testing, and everything like that.
It ain't going to be an NBA player waiting for her. It's going to be one of those security guards. And it's not going to it's going to be
with a nose swab.
Right. I just hope that the girl doesn't travel very far. Because that's going to be an awkward time home for her. But I don't think any of these girls are going to be dumb enough to try to do that. However, I do think there are NBA players who are dumb enough to try to get them into the bubble. Because if you think about it, it doesn't matter for them. There's no consequences, I wouldn't think. It's just going to be like, hey, don't be an idiot. Like a girl came, said she was here for you, or tried to sneak in, or whatever it might have been. All it is, slap on the wrist for the NBA players. Obviously, they're not taking into consideration the embarrassment this girl's going to go through trying to sneak in.
So what I want to say to that is I know that the players are going to be allowed guests at some point. So I believe it's after the first round of the playoffs. They will be allowed to invite guests. Now, are you going to invite someone that you really don't know all that well that could potentially be in this bubble for a few weeks with you? Because the players are going to have to pay for any guests that come and stay at the resort.
Does that include family?
I believe it does include family. So even if your family comes, the NBA players are the ones that are going to be paying for them to stay there. So there are plenty of young single guys in the NBA that don't have
right.
a spouse or kids yet. So they're going to be needing some company, I guess you could put it. It's a possibility that they could be hitting up these different people.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it is not out of the realm of possibility, Jonathan, that when NBA players go on the road, they engage in activities
extracurricular in nature.
Right. With some women, and it's just not, that doesn't shock me. So these guys that are used to that on the road, they're spending months in this bubble, some longer than others. And, it might be some trying times for them, Jonathan. But,
you never know. Well, all I can say is I hope everything makes it, in and out of this whole situation as healthy as possible. And
correct.
We really need the NBA season to finish.
Also, Jonathan, I think we vaguely touched on last week talking about how, people pose the question of, will NBA players abide by the guidelines? But listened to some podcasts, did some thinking. You got teams like the Wizards, right?
Right. Nothing
who
to
are
lose.
nothing to lose. What is stopping them from, they're halfway through the season, they're 0-4. They understand the season's over. What is stopping them from just walking out that door, catching a flight, and going all the way home?
I would think there would probably be some type of like, I don't know, maybe not. There's plenty of guys saying they're not going to come to the bubble, so maybe there won't be any ramifications. But I mean, I think there's got to be some language somewhere that would prevent them from getting paid, or whatever the case may be, or just, I mean, dignity.
But,
Like, you tell somebody
yeah,
you're going to do something, show up and do it.
yeah. But what if they say, I don't know, got a stomach bug, I'm not feeling well, it's been a couple days, my hand hurts, I'm not going to be of any use to the team anyway, I'm not going to play, so can I just leave?
I would be really surprised, just given there's not a lot of veterans on that team. It's mostly young guys who are going to be fighting for their next contract and stuff like that. So
I mean, it doesn't have to be them. We can say it's the Suns. We can say it's whoever.
I'm just talking about anybody. I don't see a lot of veterans doing that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, maybe not veterans, but some players with attitudes who are mad they're not winning.
Well, just make sure they never sign with the Magic, and I'll be fine.
It's true.
I'll be fine. So, what were you gonna take it? Go for it.
I was just gonna say, speaking of the Magic, how about Mr. Swoler Bamba?
Dude, Mo Bamba, I said this a few weeks ago, looked like he ate Mo Bamba.
And
on that Zoom call, he looks literally yoked.
His face somehow is defined. I don't really know what it is. It looks almost swollen. So I don't know, man. I'm excited to see if his production goes up, if he's able to kind of play a little bit more bully ball and hold his own down there. That was really one of the things that he needs to improve, is just to add some muscle. And I mean, he's a big guy, long wingspan, obviously. He's on the Magic, So that building that muscle was the next step. And I think if he can do this, and who knows, maybe he needs to add a little more, I really don't know, but 20 pounds of muscle, that's not too bad.
Well, the great modern poet Aubrey Drake Graham once said, I got to watch my back because I'm not just anybody. I think that's going to be Vooch. He's got to watch his back. Mo Bamba is putting on the pounds, and I've got to think that he definitely eventually wants to become the starting center of the Orlando Magic. Vooch looks pretty cut as well. I mean, Aaron Gordon definitely put on some muscle, as Luke77 in the Twitch chat, what's going on, man, mentioned. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed. I don't think Mo put on the 28 pounds or whatever it is that he's claiming of muscle, but just the fact that he was able to stay diligent during all this stuff that's going on, work on his body, because that's all what we've all been saying, right? He definitely needs to fill out, and this just might be part of his body naturally physically maturing, but he's definitely putting the work in, which is it's really a great sign in my opinion.
Listen, kudos to Mo Bamba. Even though I know it's his job as the NBA and his physique, I know I didn't put on the muscle weight or shed any pounds during this quarantine because of what it is. It's just like we've been so bored. So for him to take that boredom and make it into production of gaining that muscle, good for him.
Facts. All right, so we're 20 minutes deep into this. We're going to get into this week's episode. We're going to do our best to break down the Western Conference, all the teams that are going to be in the bubble, that are currently in the bubble. We're going to kind of go through their schedule, what we think their records are going to be like, and then how we think the standings are going to break down at the end of the season. So we're not going to spend too much time on the top teams, kind of like we did last week, because largely like the number one seed is cemented by the Los Angeles Lakers. But then, when we talk about the Clippers and Nuggets, might be a little bit of movement there. But really when we talk about like the, what is now the 4 through like the 7th seed, there's a lot of room for movement there. And there's a lot of room for movement for that, 8th and 9th spot. So, Luke, let's get into this. Let's talk about the Lakers. So the Lakers are going to start off, I'll just kind of read through their schedule really quickly. So we're looking at Clippers, Raptors, Jazz, Thunder, Rockets, Pacers, Nuggets, Kings are going to be the Lakers' 8 games. What do you think happens? What is their record in the bubble?
Jonathan, my answer to this is going to be a whole lot like it was when we went over the Bucks schedule, which is doesn't matter. They're 5.5 games ahead of the Clippers. The Clippers aren't making up that ground. The Clippers need to just look over their shoulder and make sure the Nuggets or the Jazz aren't passing them. So when it comes to the Lakers, I'll go ahead and say they go 6-2. I don't know if they'll go 8-0. It wouldn't surprise me, but 6-2 I feel like is a safe conservative thing record wise. I think they'll go 6-2. They'll hold on to that one spot. That's not even close to being in jeopardy.
So when we talked about the Eastern Conference last week, I talked about the fact that, if the Bucks get far enough ahead, they might just decide to rest like Giannis and Chris Middleton and some of those guys. I feel like my attitude towards that has kind of changed because this is my thinking. These guys haven't played basketball in 4 months. They need as much basketball as they can get right now to get in rhythm for the playoffs. So I actually have the Lakers going 7-1. The only reason I had them dropping one game, the first game to the Clippers, is because I didn't want to say they're going to go 8-0. I feel like that's going to be pretty difficult to do. But I feel like they might drop that first game to the Clippers. But then I just have them steamrolling the rest of the way through. So Raptors, Jazz, Thunder, Rockets, Pacers, Nuggets, Kings. Lakers finish up 7-1, secure the 1 seed, and the Lakers, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and those boys will be hitting their rhythm as they get into the playoffs. So what about the Clippers, Luke?
Yeah. So if you look at the Clippers schedule, they start, as everybody knows, the highly anticipated Lakers-Clippers matchup, which is the one I'm most excited about outside of being a Magic fan. Looking forward to the Magic's first game. Is the Lakers-Clippers. They've got Lakers, Pelicans, Suns, Mavs, Blazers, Nets, Nuggets, OKC. So I'd say that's a pretty moderate schedule, especially for them, that they can handle. I do have them winning that first game against the Lakers. I have them losing to the Blazers and the Nuggets.
Blazers, tell me more.
Well, first we can talk about the Nuggets first, and then I can get into the Blazers. But I just think that the Nuggets, they're a solid team in the West. I think that they've, obviously they've got their guys, and I think they did pretty well this year against the Clippers. Let me look that up because I'm pretty positive.
Well, I've got the Clippers as you're looking that up. I've got the Clippers basically winning their first 7 games, losing the last game. Just like the Lakers, pretty much. I really don't see them losing to too many of these teams, but I didn't want to say that they're going to go 8-0.
Right.
I just, especially in this type of environment, which is essentially going to be a pickup game, I think Chris Paul, who is the ultimate competitor, he's had 4 months now just to continue to work on his body and continue to get in even better shape and rest up and everything like that. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was also playing really well. Dennis Schroeder as well. So I really like the Thunder. And I do think by that time, just based off of the way that I see it going for the Nuggets, I have the Clippers wrapping up the 2nd seed heading into that final game. So they won't really need that game. And if there's going to be any 2 players that you would want to rest in this scenario, I mean, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are pretty much prime candidates. Have a slew of, injury history. You want to keep those guys healthy. So if anybody's going to rest, I could definitely see it being those guys.
And also, kind of talking about the Clippers, I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, pretty sure that I saw that Landry Shamet is not going to be in the bubble. Have you heard one way or the other?
I think I heard something similar to that. I'm going to look it up right now if you want to keep going.
I'm pretty positive that Landry Shamet is going to be not with the team. And yes, he's not incredible, but he is a guy that gives you 10 points a game and can provide points if needed. So I think that that'll be somewhat of a hit. I don't think it'll be too big of a hit, but it could be in games against guys like the Blazers. I mean, the Blazers are no slouches. They're one of the better teams that is low in the West, right? So
sorry, Landry Shamet, he did test positive for coronavirus, but he's not being ruled out as of right now. So
as of right now, so who
TBD.
knows? Yeah. So if he's there, I mean, he does make a difference. But with the Blazers, I like you said, like, it's hard to say that the team, even the Clippers, is going to go 8-0. And like I said with the Lakers, if they do, won't surprise me. But as of now, I've got them most importantly taking 2 losses, going 6-2, and losing those games to Blazers, Nuggets, Blazers kind of the second half of the regular season. Who knows? It's right after they play the Mavs. That'll be a hard-fought game, and then going into the Blazers, I mean, Dame's always going to give it his all, and so we'll see.
Yeah, man, that's another guy, him and CJ, really excited to see what they're going to be able to do in the bubble. So next we're going to talk about what is currently the 4th seed, the Utah Jazz. So they're going to start against the Pelicans, then they face the Thunder, Lakers, Grizzlies, Spurs, Nuggets, Mavericks, and Spurs. Luke, I've got them dropping games to the Thunder, Lakers, and the Nuggets, winning their other 5 games against the Pelicans, Grizzlies, Spurs, Mavs, and the Spurs again. To finish 5-3 in the final 8 games here.
Yeah, I've just got I've got the Jazz going 3-5, so I've got them dropping to the Pels, OKC, Lakers, Spurs, because they didn't do that well in the regular season against them. So we'll see how they can do in the resumption of the league, and the Nuggets.
See, we'll talk about the Spurs more in a moment, but a big thing for me is just the fact they're not going to have LaMarcus Aldridge. So outside of DeMar, their next leading scorer is Bryn Forbes, who I think averaged like 11.7 points per game or something like that. So it's definitely going to be up to guys, like DeJounte Murray, and Derek White to step up for that team. Bryn Forbes as well, but yeah, definitely going to be a big load on DeMar DeRozan. Good grief, forgot his name for a moment. It's not the easiest name to remember. But anyways, so I guess we'll move on to the Thunder here. So Thunder are looking at Jazz, Nuggets, Lakers, Grizzlies, Wizards, Suns, Heat, and then the Clippers, Luke.
Yeah, I've got them going 4-3, picking up games against the Jazz, Grizzlies, Wizards, and Suns, dropping games the Nuggets, Lakers, Heat, and Clippers. So that is kind of a little bit of a rough schedule for OKC, but I do have them going better than the Jazz, so they'll tighten that gap from the 4 to the 5.
Yeah, for some reason I've just got this embedded in my brain that Chris Paul is just going to play really, really well in this type of environment. And that is kind of why I picked them to go 6-2. So I have them just dropping games to the Lakers and the Clippers, and I have them winning really the rest of the way. Jazz, Nuggets, Grizzlies, Wizards, Suns. I feel like those 3 games are pretty much gimmies there, and then beating the Heat as well. Part of it is I just don't really care for the Heat, and I want to see them lose as many games as possible. So, but yeah, so let's talk about the Rockets, and then we can talk a little bit about what the seeding might look like. Like we mentioned, when it comes to the Clippers, Nuggets, Jazz, Thunders, Rockets, Mavericks, it's a really, really close battle here to end the season.
Yeah, it is, and like you said, it's close. So it's from the 1 to 7 spot, incredibly close. And then the 7 to the 8, we were kind of talking about that drop off earlier, is 7-game difference between the 7 seed and the 8 seed. And then you've got that just clump of teams from the 9 to the 11, that being the Blazers, Pelicans, Kings, that are all tied in record, being 3.5 games behind the Grizz. And then you've got the Spurs that are a half game behind the Kings. So, and you've got the Suns, whatever. So, there's a lot, but essentially you're in 2 different just stratospheres with the standings in this conference, but both are very interesting and both have their own narratives.
Right. So with the Rockets, so they're starting with the Mavericks, and then they face the Bucks, the Blazers, the Lakers, the Kings, the Spurs, the Pacers, the 76ers. I personally have them going 6-2, only dropping games to the Bucks and the Lakers. How about you, Luke? Talk to me about the way that you see it wrapping up for the Rockets, and then we can specifically talk about what especially like that 3 through 7 seed, what that's going to look like for the Western Conference here.
Yeah, so with the Rockets, I've got them kind of starting off shaky. I've got them losing to the Mavs and the Bucks and the Lakers, and picking up their wins against the Blazers, and then ending on a 4-game win streak against Kings, Spurs, Pacers, Sixers. So I've got them going 5-3.
So the way that it's kind of broken down for me, and just to remind the listeners here, so I've got the Lakers and the Clippers both going 7-1. So I feel like the 1 and 2 seed, especially for me, are really solidified. But I think when it comes down to the 3, really through the 6th, 7th seed, it really gets pretty interesting. So I've got the Nuggets, who right now they are a game and a half up on the Jazz. I've got them winning 4 games. I've got the Jazz winning 5 games. So it's not going to be enough for the Jazz, in my opinion, to jump to the 3 seed. So we're really looking at the Jazz, Thunder, and Rockets for me is where there's going to be the most movement. So I've got the Jazz going 5-3. I've got the Thunder going 6-2, and I've got the Rockets going 6-2. So right now, both of those teams, the Thunder and the Rockets, are only a game behind the Jazz. So I've actually got both the Thunder and the Rockets leaping the Jazz to be the 4th seed and the 5th seed. I've got the Jazz dropping to 6, Luke.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Of course, I didn't do the math prior, but looking at it, I have the same thing. I've got OKC is the 4, Rockets 5, Jazz 6, and then the all 3 Lakers, Clippers, Nuggets holding their spots.
Yeah, it's really going to be so much fun to watch these games. The cool thing, we've kind of talked about this, is for those, it's going to be like 15 or 17 days, something like that, from the first game until the last game of what's going to be, the end of the regular season there. But basically, it's going to feel like, the first couple of rounds of the NCAA tournament there for a few weeks, where there's a game on all day, every day for like 2 whole weeks.
Yeah.
So especially, watching those games and watching how the Western Conference, playoff race is going to shake out is just going to be so entertaining to watch. I mean, outside of the Magic, of course, but
and
be fun.
being someone who had March Madness just ripped away from them.
We were right there.
We were right there, and they just took it out of our hands. So now that we get this, that was the biggest thing about March Madness that everybody loves, is that there's games all day, every day for so long, and that's gonna be what the NBA season feels like when they come back, and it's gonna be a lot of fun to finally have basketball back, but also have it at any time of the day.
Right. And the reason, just to kind of go back and visit this really quickly, if everyone is looking at the standings. So the way that's going to break down is that the Jazz, the Thunder, and the Rockets would all really end up with the same record there at the end of the season. But right now, the Thunder actually hold 2-1 tiebreakers over both the Rockets and the Jazz, and the Rockets hold a 2-1 tiebreaker over the Jazz. So, and that's actually not currently, because the Thunder and the Jazz are actually going to be playing each other. So that is under the assumption that the Thunder win that first game against the Jazz. So if it doesn't go that way, then things are obviously going to be a little bit different. But that's kind of the whole reason that we're doing this, to give our predictions and the way that it's going to shake out, Luke. But let's talk about the Mavericks.
Yeah, the Mavericks, they've got an interesting middle of the schedule. They do have, Clippers, Bucks, Jazz, and then they finish with Blazers, Suns, starting with the Rockets too. So I've got them beating the Rockets, as I've already said. I've got them beating the Rockets, beating the Suns. I just think there's going to be an L dropped here by the Mavs that just doesn't make sense. I'm going that they lose to the Kings, lose to the Clippers, lose to the Bucks, lose to the Jazz, and then beating the Blazers and the Suns to finish the season to go 4-4.
So I've got they're going 4-4 in my opinion as well. I just don't have them really dropping that weird game. I just have them losing to the Rockets, and knowing that they need to beat the Suns. Well, they don't really need to beat anybody here. The Grizzlies are so far behind that the Mavericks really just need to win, 1 or 2 games to solidify the 7th seed. But at least for morale, beat the Suns, beat the Kings. 3 straight losses, like you mentioned: Clippers, Bucks, Jazz. Picking up those 2 wins at the end, Blazers and Suns. Really, one of the storylines that I'm just the most excited for is to see the playoff debut of Luka Doncic. He's just been so much fun since entering the league. A lot of people feel like he has the potential to, really be an all-timer. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's going to be super exciting to see him in that setting.
Yeah, it stinks that it's going to have to be in that setting. But it'll be fun nonetheless to see Luka do his thing. Luka's just, obviously he's one of those guys that his game just is going to age well. And so to see him kind of his evolution probably from now until the end of his time, I hope he stays in a Mavs uniform the whole time. That'd be cool to have Dirk do that and then Luka do the same thing. But to kind of see his game develop, but also stay the same, because he does so many things right that you got to think he'll continue to be the same player, just a little bit better every year. So to see him in this weird format will be interesting. See how he handles it, and then moving forward, I just can't express. I mean, Luka Doncic is one of the brightest futures in the NBA, no doubt.
He's like a appointment television. Like if I know that he's gonna be playing on TNT on like a Tuesday night, I'm like, okay, I'm not doing anything tonight.
Right.
I'm sitting down and watching Luka play. So it'll definitely be really really fun and really interesting to see him in that playoff format. But I think we're both pretty much in agreement here. The way the standings are gonna shake out. The Mavericks obviously aren't going anywhere at 7. They're not really gonna be able to. I don't think be able to make up enough ground really to get to the 6th seed, but we'll definitely have to wait and see.
What did you have the Mavs going again?
4-4, just like you did.
So, and would you have the Jazz going?
I had the Jazz going 5-3.
Okay, so actually, there's been a shakeup, Jonathan. Doing the math here, I've got the Jazz at the 7th spot. The Mavs jump up to the 6th because I do have the Jazz going 3-5.
Interesting. Wow,
so
the Jazz are just in for a bad time.
They're not gonna have a good time.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. It'll definitely be interesting. I think that Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, there's been some semblance of some issues, with their team chemistry, but I mean 41-23 to this point. Like they've been one of the better teams in the entire NBA for the overwhelming part of the season. They're just 3 games behind the Clippers. As good as the Clippers have been, the Jazz have been right there, nipping at their heels.
Yeah, but you have to take into consideration Gobert has talked about not getting the ball as much, and there's been some issues that they've had on the court between him and Donovan Mitchell. Now you've got the COVID thing that it was well documented that the two players didn't see eye to eye after that whole thing happened. They already had a little bit of issues on court and gelling that way. So I just can't help but think that they might have a very, very bad time being quarantined, seeing each other every day like they do during the normal regular season. But, oh yeah, Rudy Gobert gave COVID to Donovan Mitchell.
Now that remains to be seen, right? It's suspected. I don't know if that's been confirmed that it definitely was from Rudy Gobert. It's probably pretty likely. But I love the fact that you just brought up about chemistry because I feel like chemistry isn't really being talked about enough when it comes to what's going to go on in this bubble, right? Because you have to think there's no escaping your teammates. It's not, all right, we had a bad game last night. Okay, we're going to go into practice. I got to deal with these guys for 2 or 3 hours. Then I'm going to go back home, right?
Right.
It's, okay, we all played like crap yesterday. Now we're all talking trash to each other on the way back to the rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got to practice together tomorrow. Oh, and now I see, Donovan Mitchell. Now I got to go see him at the pool or in the game room when I'm trying to relax, right? So chemistry with these teams, I think, is really going to be a huge thing. Like I like to think the Magic, maybe you don't have the best chemistry in the league, but overwhelmingly they seem to have a good culture and good chemistry. Everybody seems to like each other and get along. You know what I mean? So yeah. I definitely think teams like that. When we talk about teams like, the Los Angeles Lakers, or we talk about, teams like the Toronto Raptors or the Boston Celtics, who really seem like they like playing together and get along with each other, I think that is really going to go a long way. And I don't know that that's been talked about enough as we get ready to go into the bubble. Well, not really but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Also, I saw today that James Ennis has joined the bubble. Perfect. So I'm not going to say that he was the one that was positive for COVID, but I'm going to hint at it because it was day 1 in the bubble for him today.
Well, this is what they said. They said there were 3 players that were not in the bubble. It was Al-Farouq Aminu, who was rehabbing. It was Markelle Fultz for a non-COVID issue. And then it was an unnamed player that had coronavirus. So if anybody is entering the bubble at this point, that's not Markelle and it's not Aminu. It's got to be the person that had coronavirus.
Yeah. So James Ennis, there you go. We're no Sherlock Holmes, but we're close. So
well, this is the thing that I just kind of want to lay out, for some people that are listening, because there's been some people that are saying, oh, this really just needs to stay private. It's a personal matter. It's a health matter. I completely understand that, but I think that we need to start looking at coronavirus more like an injury rather than like
Yeah.
this like plague, because you can do all the right things, right? If other people aren't being cautious and taking the proper precautionary measures, anybody could get coronavirus, guys.
Yeah.
There's nothing like, it doesn't mean that
It
there's
doesn't
anything wrong with
discriminate.
exactly. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with this person or that they weren't doing what they were supposed to. You can do everything right and still get this thing.
Yeah, there is a weird thing
It's
about
like a
COVID
stigma.
but yeah, there is that stigma about COVID, but to an extent, it's kind of proven to be true, and I don't know why. I haven't had it, so I don't know what the feeling is when you find out you have it. But I do have a friend that tested positive for COVID, and he said, um, it's embarrassing.
Right. And
So
that's yeah,
and and
it's
and
unfortunate.
and I get it, but I don't because I can't relate. But I do feel like maybe there is that embarrassment. So maybe that is the keep it
Right.
private type thing. But when
And
the
I get
Magic are
that, but it's
when
just
the Magic are
unfortunate.
saying things and literally just letting you figure it out for yourself and unofficially but officially saying this is who has COVID, it's not that deep. I don't think. I think James Ennis obviously is fine. So while I do understand both sides, COVID is a real thing. COVID is can be deadly for some people, and some people it's deadly for them out of nowhere. So they didn't have prior health problems, whatever it may be. But the fact of the matter is, these NBA guys are the best athletes in the world. Their bodies can shake COVID. And so we're just glad that James Ennis is healthy and will be able to contribute some minutes for us come the season here. And hopefully, and those scrimmages, Jonathan, which are going to be televised on July 22nd.
Shout out to Fox Sports Florida, the real MVP.
Mm-hmm. They know, and that's the other cool part is seeing guys like Dante and David Steele and those guys that are just pumped to be able to bring basketball back and talk and be on air.
100%, man. So let's talk about this 8th seed in the West, right? So we talked about the teams that we think are going to be 1 through 7. So now we're talking about the Grizzlies, Blazers, Pelicans, Kings, Spurs, and Suns that are all going to be theoretically fighting for that 8th seed. So let's start with the Grizzlies.
I'm gonna say it, Jonathan. The Grizzlies aren't gonna have a good time.
No.
They're
Agreed.
gonna have a terrible time at the happiest place on earth. It's gonna be atrocious. If you look at their schedule, Jonathan, it's Blazers, Spurs, Pelicans, Jazz, Thunder, Raptors, Celtics, Bucks.
They legitimately might have the toughest schedule out of any team that is going to be in the bubble.
And it's unfortunate, Jonathan. I'm just gonna go ahead and say I've got them going 1-7. I have them beating the Spurs, and that's about it.
Same. Yeah, I think they're as exciting and as good as they've been at times this season. I just think they're still so young. When you're talking about John Morant, you're talking about Brandon Clark, you're talking about Jaren Jackson Jr. They have good players on on their roster. Talking about like a Dylan Brooks or a Jonas Valanciunas, excuse me. But I just don't think it's going to go well. I don't see the 2 games, in my opinion, that are winnable for them are the first 2, Blazers, Spurs. I don't think I see Dame going into that environment and losing to the Grizzlies.
Right. And here's the craziest thing. We don't have to talk too much about the Grizzlies here because like I said, it's just not going to go well. If I'm the Grizzlies, I am livid looking below me in the standings and seeing, what's the Pelicans schedule like? We've got this gauntlet where we end with the Thunder, Raptors, Celtics, Bucks. The Pelicans got to have a couple tough games in there, right, Jonathan? You look at that. It's Jazz, Clippers, Grizzlies, Kings. There's your easy one. And Wizards, there's another easy one. Spurs, another apparently easy one. Kings, and then the toughest game on the schedule, the Orlando Magic to end the season. So
Oh,
feel bad for the
absolutely.
Pelicans
Much
there.
tougher than the Clippers. Much
Yeah,
tougher.
yeah. So if you're the Grizzlies, you're not feeling great at all because it just looks like it's not in the cards for you. It looks like the NBA wanted Zion Williamson to be in the playoffs, so they said, Where can we cut this off so it's not so obvious the Pelicans are the reason we're doing this extended thing? We'll cut it off at the Suns at 13, and it's like, all right, I guess. And then, oh, by the way, we don't really know what the reasoning is, but the Pelicans are going to have a much easier schedule than the Grizzlies. And guess what? It sets up for some extra ratings, Jonathan, because as it stands, I've got the Pelicans going 6-2, the Grizzlies going 1-7. That means we're going to see a play-in game. That's more viewership for ESPN or whoever's carrying this. And it's money.
I think regardless of what was going to happen with whoever's schedule, just because, looking at, Portland, right? Portland, New Orleans, and Sacramento are all tied for 9th place right now in the Western Conference. They're all 3.5 games back of Memphis. Just kind of regardless of how the schedules turned out, I think we were going to see a play-in game there anyways. But I'm definitely not mad about it. Seeing Ja Morant and Zion Williamson, the two biggest names from last year's draft, seeing them go toe-to-toe in potentially 3 play-in games.
Well, yeah, you've got to understand. I don't know. I guess that counts as the postseason.
Or potentially 2 play-in games, excuse me.
Right. So I'm guessing that's the postseason. But let's see. We do get to see their third games in the bubble. At least the Pelicans' third game. They play the Grizzlies there. So you'll get kind of that prelim to the play-in. But you got to understand, the regular season's not over yet, Jonathan. So these guys are still going head-to-head for Rookie of the Year.
True.
So you get that Grizzlies. I'm not gonna lie to you. I just got chills thinking about Ja and Zion going against each other with Rookie of the Year. My wife just looked at me funny, by the way, when I said I had chills. So
about
there's that.
2 men get all sweaty.
Yeah.
Nothing weird about that at all.
But it is and that just shows how much I've missed basketball and talking about it. But getting them to go against each other and what is still the regular season. Yes, these are seeding games, but I believe it's the regular season and will be counted as such. So to see Zion and Ja go head-to-head against each other in these circumstances for the first time together, it's going to be really interesting, Jonathan, to see which player gets the better of the other.
As excited as I am, to watch these guys go head-to-head, I'm a big Damian Lillard fan, and we've kind of jumped over the Blazers a little bit. So much excitement, obviously and deservedly so, going to be around the Grizzlies and the Pelicans. But we do need to talk about the Blazers here really, really quickly. So
yeah.
I don't see it going all that well for the Blazers. They do have a pretty tough schedule themselves. So they open against the Grizzlies, but then they have the Celtics, Rockets, Nuggets, Clippers, Sixers, Mavericks, and then they finish with the Nets. Luke, I have them going 2-6 to finish the season.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Jonathan. I am going to be real honest. I looked at the schedule and said I'm not even predicting anything for this because there's no point. They're not going to make any headway, and they definitely don't have a schedule like the Pelicans. So why bother?
Well, we can break this down, I guess, the last 3 teams, really, really quickly. But just so that you guys just have a feel for the way this is going to go for the Kings, Spurs, and Suns, at least in my opinion, I have those 3 teams. So they're going to play, 24 games between the 3 of them? I have them winning a total of 3 of those games, Luke.
It's not good. And here's the thing. These teams might win a few more than we predicted because at the end of the day, it is the NBA. Teams don't always win games against teams that they should. Some teams are known to play down to their competition. Some teams are known to play up to their competition. And you've got these teams that are at the end that at the bottom of the Western Conference who've got nothing to lose at this point. So we might see some games where those winning teams come in sluggish. They're overlooking them. They play a good team. Then in the next couple days, so they're overlooking that. We've seen that so many times. So don't get me wrong, and I'm sure I can speak for both of us when I say we will not be surprised when there's upsets when the Suns beat some teams they shouldn't. But
this is why we don't bet on NBA basketball.
That is true. You have a point because I don't know if I'm going to touch that.
We can revisit these results in a few weeks from now and see how we did, I guarantee you it's going to be not anywhere near close to what we have here. But this is fun.
It's fun, but at the end of the day, I think that the general results will be pretty similar to what we predicted, such as with the Pelicans, Grizzlies being the ones that do those playing games. The Jazz probably falling a few spots. I think that some of those things will come true, but that'll be fun to revisit our notes and see how wrong we were and kind of humble us there.
So I did just want to touch on this really quickly. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but the Kings, they start with the Spurs, Magic, Mavericks, Pelicans, Nets, Rockets, Pelicans, and Lakers. Luke, I've got them winning 2 games. What about you?
We'll give them. This is the same scenario for me as it was for what we just discussed. I'll give them 3. But while I will say it's good that they get to play the Pelicans twice. That's someone they're going right up against. So if they can split that series with them, that'd be great. I've got them stealing one of those games just because it is hard to beat a team multiple times, especially in that short amount of time. But who knows what happens? But I do have the Kings at least picking up a win against the Pelicans and trying to do the best they can to make up some ground for kind of the advantage it feels like the Pelicans have.
Yeah, they definitely have to feel like their destiny is in their own hands. If they put together a few wins here, they're going to have a chance to make a push for that play-in game. So let's talk about the Spurs. Luke, I've got the Spurs losing every single game. Like I mentioned, because there's no LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan is going to have to completely shoulder the load. He's definitely a guy that's capable of doing that and getting you a few wins, but they don't have an easy schedule. So it's Kings, Grizzlies, 76ers, Nuggets, Jazz, Pelicans, Rockets, Jazz. We talked about this last week. It's like a trend because all the teams that are at this bubble are competing for playoff spots. So it feels like every single team that's on your schedule is a good team.
Yeah, I've got them picking up at least a win or 2. One of them being that random win to the Jazz, just because there has to be some weird, chaotic wins and losses and games that it shouldn't be happening remotely close. But I mean they don't stand a chance here.
Luke, and then we take a look at the Suns. So this first game for the Suns really has major implications, Luke. We both said the Wizards are not going to win a game, right?
Yeah.
If the Suns don't win this first game against the Wizards, it might be the Suns that don't win a game. So they've got the Wizards, then they've got the Mavericks, Clippers, Pacers, Heat, Thunder, Sixers, Mavs.
It is truly the battle of the worst teams in the bubble for the Suns and the Wizards.
Loser goes 8-0-8.
Yeah, I think the Suns pick it up that first game.
So do I.
So Wizards, sorry. Suns, it is what it is for them. They're gonna win 1 game, maybe 2, possibly 3, but probably 2 is where I'm landing.
Gotcha. Well, that pretty much wraps it up, guys. You've heard what we have to say about the Western Conference teams. We'll try to revisit this in a few weeks after the regular season has ended, but definitely going to be pretty exciting. But Luke, what's the thing that you're most excited for when it comes to the Western Conference playoff race?
I'm after talking about it. I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Jazz. I think that that'll be a fun storyline. I'm most looking forward to seeing how the Pelicans play with Zion and how the Grizzlies fare with their gauntlet of a schedule as well. I think that's probably the most exciting for me. But if you look at the playoffs and what that could be, I believe after looking at what I predict, it'll be Lakers, Pelicans, Clippers, Jazz, Mavs, Nuggets, which would be a lot of fun. And then you've got a 4 or 5 matchup of Thunder and Rockets.
That's spicy.
That is, and this is that is a matchup where I wish it was back to normal. I wish that we were back playing in stadiums. I wish that, or in arenas. I wish that, OKC could feel the home court advantage when they had games at home at Chesapeake, because that crowd is incredible. And the Rockets is as well. So it would be awesome for them to travel back and forth and to see that. But unfortunately, we don't get that this year. But there is, the storyline of OKC and the Rockets. You've got CP3 and Russ. You don't need to say anything else, because that's going to be an intense battle.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially you look at Lakers Pelicans. If this was normal, just the playoff, the TV ratings alone, Zion versus LeBron would just be absolutely incredible. I'm definitely really excited to see what happens with those middle seeds in the West. My guilty pleasure, I'm a Dame fan, 100%. He's one of my favorite players in the league that's not on the Orlando Magic. But I'm hoping that the Blazers can find a way to get hot and make it to a play-in game. Maybe, against the Grizzlies or, whatever is going to happen there. But a lot of things to be excited for. I'm so just grateful that basketball is going to be back. It just seems like all day, every day, there's going to be something to talk about, something to watch on TV. It's going to be a much-needed escape from the last, 4 months.
Yeah, and there is one more thing I see in the Twitch chat. The question was, do we think that the additions of Jamal Crawford and Michael Beasley give the Nets a chance at the 7th seed?
It's a good question, but absolutely not.
If you go back and look, Jamal Crawford last played 2018-19 season, 8 points a game, which doesn't sound too bad, but then you look, he shot 39.7% from the field, 33% from three. He's 39 years old. And if you look at Beasley is Beasley. He might give you a game. And Jamal Crawford, don't get me wrong. Jamal Crawford might give you a game, maybe two. You really can't sleep on Jamal Crawford in that sense, especially when there's not a lot of talent around him and he's got to make some points, and I think he could do that. Beasley can give you a game. His last time with the Lakers, 2018-19 season, averaging 7 a game, shooting 49% from the field, so really not too bad there. But shooting 17% from three, but only shooting 0.7 a game, threes a game. So all that to say, it's not going to make a huge splash. It'll make for an exciting highlight to see Jamal Crawford come back and who knows, put up a 30-40 point game. I think he can do it, especially on the Nets when they've got nobody else. So
I love Jamal Crawford. I think he's just an awesome human being, first and foremost. I also love his game, just kind of the herky-jerky, style that he has, the ability to pull up from anywhere, when he was in his prime. That being said, if this was like the basketball tournament or Peach Jam or like the Big Three, I'd say 100% Jamal Crawford has, the ability to make a huge impact. But for all the reasons you just mentioned, 39 years old, the efficiency is definitely not what it once was. He's 39 years old. I mean, that's really where I think you can start it and leave it.
The efficiency has never really been there. He shoots a career 41% from the field, a career 34.8% from three. Even when he was scoring 20 points a game, he's shooting 41% from the field. So there was still a little bit left to be desired about Jamal Crawford. He's going to lose the Nets some games, and he's going to win them some games.
I was more so referring to just the ability to put him out on the floor for a few minutes and him heat up and drop 4 threes, in a 6-minute stretch. I don't think that's going to happen. And you said, he might be able to give you a game, but it's unlikely.
But also, last question, then we'll wrap it up. We've gone a little long here, but that's all right because we're excited about basketball coming back. But since we last spoke, I believe he wasn't on the roster yet. J.R. Smith being on the Lakers.
He has officially signed since our last episode.
He has officially signed. And
talk about being appreciative of the accommodations. J.R. Smith, very appreciative of the snacks in his hotel room.
So much so that the NBA texted him and said, hey, quiet down. And then he just ended his Instagram live. JR, incredible, hilarious character. I'm excited to see him back on the court. I hope that we can get some shots and buckets from J.R. Smith from the logo. I just he's so exciting to watch, and just remember in the playoffs against Golden State, shooting from the C on the Cleveland C at half court, a little bit in front of it to beat the shot clock, and that's just kind of the guy JR is. I hope we can see some big games out of JR. I'd love that for him.
Oh yeah, some playoff games. JR is one of those guys who, like Jamal Crawford, can hit 4 threes in a few minute stretch and just completely change the dynamic of a game. So it'll definitely be interesting, man. Like you said, just excited to get basketball back.
Yep, and I think that's all we got for you guys today.
Yeah, we're working over the next few weeks trying to get a few guests on the show, so be on the lookout for that. But other than that, Luke and I have talked about, I don't know if it's going to be that first game back. I don't know if we've decided that yet, but we're going to be live streaming as we watch, some Magic games coming up here, so definitely be on the lookout for that. So, but yeah, once again, appreciate you guys listening. Going to keep these coming every single Monday, so just keep coming back and listening. So for Luke, this has been Jonathan. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Six Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya.